Could you please hide that Bible when the guests come? It makes the house feel old. Those words cut through my 70-year-old heart like a rusty blade, leaving wounds that would take months to heal. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd share. And if you, for even a second, feel like this story sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe, because this story might help someone draw closer to God's love. Amen. My name is Mary Lou Thompson, and I'm standing in what used to be my living room in Austin, Texas, holding the same leather-bound Bible that has been my companion for 47 years. The same Bible that still bears tear stains on Psalm 34, from the night I begged God on my knees to bring my son James home safely from Afghanistan. The same Bible I clutched during my husband Robert's final moments in the hospital, when the cancer had taken everything except his whispered prayer, "Lord, take care of our Mary Lou." But to my daughter-in-law Paula, this sacred book was nothing more than an embarrassment. Something that made their carefully curated home feel old, like me. I'm wearing my blue cardigan, the one Robert used to say made me look like a slice of heaven, over a simple floral dress that's been pressed and repressed because I still believe in looking presentable, even when your own family treats you like you're invisible. My gray hair is pinned back the way I've worn it since 1982, and my wedding ring still catches the afternoon light streaming through windows I used to clean with pride, back when this house was truly mine. The house smells like Paula's expensive vanilla candles now, not the cinnamon and apple scents that once filled these rooms during holidays when laughter echoed from every corner. The walls that once displayed my cross-stitched scripture verses now hold abstract art that costs more than my monthly pension, but means absolutely nothing to anyone with a soul. I can hear Paula in the kitchen, her voice sharp with irritation, as she directs the caterers she hired for tonight's dinner party. Everything has to be perfect for James's boss, a man who could potentially promote my son to regional manager, the promotion we've all been praying for, though Paula would roll her eyes if she knew I still included their financial struggles in my nightly prayers. The dining room needs to look sophisticated, Paula continues, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors Robert and I installed with our own hands 30 years ago. Nothing too traditional, you know what I mean. I know exactly what she means. Traditional means Christian. Traditional means the values that built this home, this family, this life they're now living in comfort because of sacrifices they've forgotten I made. I walk slowly toward my bedroom, the smallest room in the house, tucked away at the end of the hall like an afterthought. It used to be James's childhood bedroom, where we'd read Bible stories together before tucking him in under his Dallas Cowboys comforter. Now it's my prison, 10 feet by 12 feet of space they graciously allow me to occupy in the house I signed over to them 3 years ago. 3 years ago, when James sat me down at this very kitchen table with documents spread before him like he was conducting a business meeting rather than talking to his mother. "Mom, this is just in case something happens to you," he'd said, his voice gentle but insistent. "It'll make everything easier for everyone. The house will stay in the family, and you'll never have to worry about anything." What he didn't tell me was that the moment I signed those papers, I'd stop being Mary Lou Thompson, homeowner and family matriarch, and become Mary Lou Thompson, burden and charity case. The small cross that used to hang above my bed is gone now. James took it down one evening, claiming, "Not everyone is into your religious stuff, Mom." I found it the next morning in a cardboard box beside the trash can, wrapped in old newspaper like it was something shameful that needed to be hidden from the world. I retrieved it, of course, and now it sits in my dresser drawer along with my rosary, my prayer journal, and the letters Robert wrote me during his deployment in Vietnam, all the things that make me who I am, tucked away where they can't offend anyone's modern sensibilities. My pension check arrives every month, $2,147 after taxes, and it goes directly into their household account. I found out by accident that this money covers nearly half their monthly expenses, including the mortgage on the house that used to be mine. Paula mentioned it during a phone call with her sister, not realizing I was within earshot as I folded their laundry in the adjacent room. "At least her pension covers the important bills," Paula had said, her voice carrying the casual dismissiveness reserved for discussing utilities or grocery expenses. "It's not like we could afford this place without it. So I'm not just unwanted. I'm unwanted but financially necessary. A walking ATM with an inconvenient attachment to outdated beliefs and embarrassing displays of faith. Tonight's dinner party represents everything I've been excluded from over the past 3 years. Important conversations happen around me, not with me. Family decisions are made in hushed conferences that end abruptly when I enter the room. My granddaughter Isabel, now 15, barely acknowledges my presence unless she needs help with homework or wants me to make her favorite chocolate chip cookies. I remember when Isabel was 7 and asked me to teach her the Lord's Prayer. We'd sit together on the front porch swing, her small hands folded in mine as we recited words that connected us to something eternal and beautiful. Our Father, who art in heaven, she'd whisper, her voice serious with the weight of addressing the Almighty directly. Now she refuses to say grace at meals, claiming it's weird and unnecessary. When I suggested we attend church together for Easter, she looked at me like I'd proposed we travel to Mars. The grandfather clock in the hallway, another piece of my life that survived the transition but lost its meaning, chimes 5 o'clock. The guests will arrive at 7, and Paula's anxiety is reaching fever pitch. I can hear her opening and closing cabinet doors, rearranging place settings that were already perfect, muttering about wine glasses and ensuring nothing looks too country. I sit on the edge of my narrow bed, my Bible open to Proverbs 31, and read about the woman who opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. The woman whose children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. When was the last time anyone in this house called me blessed? When was the last time I felt like anything other than an obligation they were too polite to abandon completely? Through my bedroom window, I can see Mrs. Henderson next door tending to her rose garden, her movements slow but purposeful as she prepares her plants for the coming season. She waves when she notices me watching, and I wave back, remembering when we used to share coffee and prayer requests over the fence that separates our properties. Mrs. Henderson still calls me Mary Lou, still asks about my health and my family with genuine interest, still invites me to Wednesday evening Bible study, though I've stopped attending because Paula makes passive-aggressive comments about me going out so much and leaving her to handle dinner preparations alone. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm more welcome in a neighbor's garden than I am in my own living room. A knock on my bedroom door interrupts my thoughts. "Mom?" James's voice carries the same tone he used as a child when he wanted permission for something he knew might be denied. "Could we talk for a minute?" I close my Bible and smooth my skirt, preparing myself for whatever new accommodation I'll be asked to make in the name of family harmony. "Come in, sweetheart." He enters looking uncomfortable, his tie slightly askew despite Paula's earlier attention to his appearance. At 45, James has his father's kind eyes and gentle smile, though both have been strained lately by financial pressures and workplace stress. He's gained weight around his middle, and his hairline has receded significantly since his divorce from his first wife, but he's still my boy, the child who used to help me set up the nativity scene every Christmas and never complained about attending Sunday services. "About tonight," he begins, not quite meeting my eyes. "Paula thinks it might be better if you stayed in your room during dinner, just until after the boss leaves. You understand, right? This promotion could change everything for us." The words hang in the air between us like a death sentence. "Stay in your room. Hide yourself. Pretend you don't exist." "I understand," I whisper, though every fiber of my being screams against this humiliation. James nods quickly, relief washing over his face as he escapes back to his preparations, leaving me alone with memories that suddenly feel like accusations. I remember the night James called from Kandahar, his voice breaking through static and fear. "Mom, I need you to pray for me. I don't think I'm coming home." I spent the entire night on my knees in this very room, pleading with God, bargaining with the Almighty, promising anything if he'd just bring my boy back safely. When James walked through that airport terminal 8 months later, whole and breathing, the first words out of his mouth were, "Thank you for your prayers, Mom." I felt them every single day. Now those same prayers are an embarrassment to be hidden from his colleagues. I reach under my bed and pull out a shoebox filled with letters. Dozens of them, written on military stationery and hotel letterhead, thanking me for care packages, for birthday cards, for the monthly checks I sent even when Robert and I were eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner to make ends meet. "You don't know what your support means to me," one letter reads in James's careful handwriting. "Every dollar you send helps me remember that someone back home believes in me." Those dollars came from cleaning houses in the wealthy part of Austin, scrubbing toilets and mopping floors for families who never bothered to learn my name. 5 houses every Saturday, $40 each. Money that went straight into an envelope marked James's future that I kept hidden in my recipe box. When he came home and wanted to start his own business, I gave him $12,000, every penny I'd saved, plus money I'd borrowed against our home equity. The business failed within 2 years. James never mentioned paying me back, and I never asked. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We give without keeping score, love without expecting receipts, sacrifice without demanding recognition. When Paula entered our lives 5 years ago, I embraced her like the daughter I never had. She was struggling to finish nursing school while working nights at a diner, exhausted and overwhelmed by student loans that seemed insurmountable. I offered to pay for her final semester, $1,800 that represented 3 months of my house cleaning wages, because I could see how much James loved her, and I wanted their happiness more than I wanted financial security. "You don't have to do this, Mrs. Thompson," Paula had said, tears streaming down her face as she held my check. "I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I graduate and find a good job." She never paid me back. The subject simply evaporated, like morning dew that disappears without acknowledgement once the sun rises high enough. When they married, I paid for the reception hall, $4,700 that emptied my savings account, but filled my heart with joy as I watched them dance to "At Last." Under twinkling lights, I'd helped string myself. I spent weeks making centerpieces, addressing invitations, and coordinating with vendors because Paula was working double shifts and James was traveling for his new sales job. "I don't know what we would have done without you," Paula whispered in my ear during the father-daughter dance, since her own father had passed away when she was 12. "You're the mother I always wished I had, the mother she always wished she had." Those words sustained me through years of gradual cooling, through the slow transformation from beloved family member to tolerated burden. I told myself that stress was making her distant, that financial pressures were straining everyone's patience, that she still loved me even when her actions suggested otherwise. When Isabel was born, I was the one who drove Paula to the hospital at 3 a.m, while James was stuck in Dallas on a business trip. I held Paula's hand through 16 hours of labor, coached her through contractions, and was the first person besides the medical staff to hold my granddaughter. "She looks like you, Mom," James said when he finally arrived, exhaustion and gratitude competing for space on his face. "She's got your eyes." For the first 2 years of Isabel's life, I was her primary caregiver, while Paula worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital. I changed diapers, prepared bottles, sang lullabies, and read board books about Jesus loves the little children until I could recite them from memory. When Isabel said her first word, "Gamma," my heart nearly exploded with pride and love. I documented everything in photo albums that now sit forgotten in my closet, evidence of a relationship that feels like ancient history. Pictures of Isabel and me at the zoo, at the park, at Vacation Bible School where she won a prize for memorizing the books of the New Testament. In every photo, we're both smiling, both completely present in moments that felt eternal and precious. When did she stop calling me Gamma? When did she start rolling her eyes when I suggested we make cookies together? When did my presence in her life become something to endure rather than enjoy? The transition happened so gradually that I can't pinpoint the exact moment everything changed. It was like watching a sunset. You don't notice the light fading until suddenly you're sitting in darkness, wondering where the day went. I remember the first time Paula criticized my faith openly. We were having Sunday dinner, and I was saying grace over our meal when she interrupted with, "Do we really need to do this every time? It's just food." The words hit me like a physical blow, not because of their content, but because of the casual dismissiveness in her tone, the way she spoke about prayer like it was an outdated ritual that modern people had evolved beyond. "It's how we've always done things in this house," I replied gently. trying to maintain peace while defending something sacred to me. Well, maybe it's time for some things to change, she shot back, and James said nothing, just stared at his plate like the pattern in the china might reveal some solution to the tension crackling between us. That was 3 years ago, and I haven't said grace aloud since. I pray silently now, eyes open while they discuss soccer schedules and work gossip. My conversations with God reduced to whispered thoughts that no one can mock or dismiss. When my arthritis flared up last winter, making it difficult for me to manage household tasks, I mentioned to Paula that I might need to see a doctor about stronger pain medication. At your age, Mom Thompson, aches and pains are just part of life, she said without looking up from her laptop. You just have to push through it. Push through it. Like decades of faithful service to this family, like countless sacrifices made without complaint, like the physical pain of aging were just inconveniences that I should handle privately so as not to burden anyone with my deteriorating usefulness. I stopped mentioning my health problems after that. When I fell in the bathroom 2 months ago and bruised my ribs, I never told anyone. I treated myself with ice packs and over-the-counter pain relievers, moving carefully through my daily responsibilities while trying not to wince visibly enough to invite questions I knew wouldn't come anyway. The loneliness is the worst part. I'm surrounded by family but feel completely isolated, included in their physical space, but excluded from their emotional lives. I know the intimate details of their schedules and responsibilities, who has dentist appointments, who needs lunch money, who's stressed about work deadlines, but they know nothing about my inner world, my fears, my hopes, my spiritual struggles. Sometimes I wonder if they'd notice if I simply disappeared. Would they miss my cooking, my cleaning, my quiet presence maintaining the household while they pursue their busy lives? Or would they just be relieved to have one less complication to manage, one less elderly person requiring accommodation and consideration? I've started having conversations with God that feel more like arguments than prayers. Lord, I've served this family faithfully for decades, I whisper into my pillow at night. I've given everything I had, sacrificed my own needs, put their happiness before my own comfort. Where are the blessings you promised? Where is the honor that comes to those who follow your commandments? The silence that follows these questions feels heavier than any response could be. Am I being tested or just forgotten? Is this suffering part of some divine plan I'm too limited to understand? Or evidence that I've spent my life believing in promises that were never meant for people like me? In my darkest moments, I wonder if Paula is right to be embarrassed by my faith. Maybe I am just a foolish old woman clinging to outdated beliefs that have no place in the modern world they're trying to build. Maybe my prayers are nothing more than wishful thinking. My Bible just a collection of ancient stories that provide comfort, but no real power to change circumstances or hearts. But then I remember the night Robert died, when this same Bible fell open to Psalm 23 and the words, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, gave me strength to face widowhood with dignity and hope." I remember the peace that filled my heart during James's deployment, the inexplicable certainty that he would return safely despite the dangers surrounding him every day. These memories keep me anchored to faith even when faith feels like a luxury I can no longer afford. The sound of laughter drifts through my bedroom door at 7:30 p.m., mingling with the clink of wine glasses and the gentle hum of sophisticated conversation. I'm sitting on my bed in the darkness, having turned off my lamp so no light would seep under the door and remind anyone of my presence in this house that used to be mine. Through the thin walls, I can hear Paula's voice, bright and animated, as she tells a story about their recent vacation to Cabo San Lucas, a trip funded by my pension money, though none of the guests would ever know that detail. The resort was absolutely divine, she gushes. We felt so blessed to have that time together as a family. Blessed. The word tastes bitter in my mouth. When was the last time I felt blessed by anything in this house? I press my ear against the wall, hungry for any scrap of inclusion, even if it's just eavesdropping on conversations I'm not welcome to join. James is discussing his work with someone who sounds impressed by his sales figures and market knowledge. Family support makes all the difference, he's saying. When you know people believe in you, it gives you the confidence to take bigger risks. Family support. I've been supporting this family financially and emotionally for years, but apparently that doesn't count as the kind of support worth mentioning to important guests. My stomach growls softly. I haven't eaten since this morning's toast because I didn't want to risk encountering anyone in the kitchen during their preparation frenzy. The refrigerator is stocked with expensive appetizers and gourmet ingredients for tonight's dinner. But I know better than to help myself to food that wasn't purchased with me in mind. I reach for my Bible, but even that familiar comfort feels hollow tonight. The leather cover is worn smooth from decades of handling, and the pages fall open automatically to verses I've memorized through repetition and desperation. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you, I read in the dim light filtering through my window. 1 Peter 5:7. A verse I've clung to through every crisis, every disappointment, every moment when human love failed me. But does he care for me? Really? Because right now it feels like I'm completely alone in a universe that has forgotten my name and dismissed my worth. A burst of laughter from the dining room interrupts my spiral into self-pity. Someone is telling jokes, and the sound of genuine enjoyment makes my isolation feel even more complete. I remember when I was the one making people laugh, when my stories about growing up on a farm in East Texas could keep a dinner table entertained for hours. Now my stories are interruptions, my memories are boring, my presence is an inconvenience to be managed. I hear footsteps in the hallway and freeze, afraid someone might discover that I'm awake and listening. But they pass by my door without pausing, probably heading to the guest bathroom or retrieving something from another room. I'm invisible, even in my own hiding place. The conversation turns to family values and community involvement, topics that should include me, given my decades of volunteering at church and participating in neighborhood committees. But I might as well be a ghost for all the recognition my contributions receive. We really believe in giving back, Paula is saying, her voice carrying the practiced sincerity of someone who's rehearsed this speech. It's so important to model service for the next generation. Service. I've been serving this family selflessly for years, but apparently that's not the kind of service that impresses dinner guests or reflects well on their character. My hands are shaking as I close the Bible and set it on my nightstand. Even God's word feels like empty promises tonight, ancient consolations that have no power to change my current circumstances or touch the hearts of people who've grown cold toward me. I think about Mrs. Henderson next door, probably sitting in her own living room watching television or reading a book, comfortable in her own space, answerable to no one but herself. When did I become so dependent on other people's approval? When did I lose the ability to exist peacefully in my own skin without requiring validation from family members who clearly don't value my presence? The grandfather clock chimes 8 o'clock, and I hear chairs scraping against the floor as the dinner party moves from cocktails to the main course. Paula has been preparing for this meal all week, practicing recipes and arranging flowers, determined to create an evening that would enhance James's professional reputation. I should be proud of her efforts, should be happy that my son has married someone who cares about his success and wants to help him advance in his career. Instead, I feel like a shameful secret that had to be concealed for their performance to succeed. Through my window, I can see lights in other houses on our street, families gathered around dinner tables or relaxing in living rooms, people who belong somewhere and with someone. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson across the street are visible through their kitchen window, cleaning up after their own evening meal, moving around each other with the comfortable choreography of a long marriage. I remember when Robert and I used to move through our kitchen like that, when washing dishes was an opportunity for conversation and gentle teasing rather than a chore to be completed as quickly as possible. He would dry while I washed, and we'd discuss our day, our dreams, our concerns about James's future, our gratitude for the life we'd built together. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Mary Lou," he used to say, hanging up the dish towel with ceremonial care. "I thank God every day for bringing you into my life." When was the last time anyone thanked God for my presence in their life? When was the last time anyone expressed gratitude for anything I've done or contributed or sacrificed? I can hear Isabel's voice now, talking about her plans for college, her excitement about studying in California, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She sounds confident and animated, so different from the sullen teenager who barely acknowledges me most days. With these guests, she's charming and articulate, the kind of granddaughter who makes family members proud. Why can't she be that way with me? What did I do to forfeit her affection and respect? I remember teaching her to braid friendship bracelets, showing her how to plant seeds in small pots, reading her stories about brave princesses and faithful friends. We used to have tea parties with her stuffed animals, elaborate productions where I would use different voices for each character, and she would giggle until her sides hurt. Now she acts like those memories are embarrassing relics from her childhood, evidence of how much she's outgrown the grandmother who once meant everything to her. I hear someone mention church, and my heart leaps with the hope that perhaps my faith might be acknowledged, that someone might ask about my involvement in the community or my years of service to our congregation. But the conversation quickly moves to other topics, and I realize that even my spiritual life has become irrelevant to these people who share my living space, but not my values. The walls of my small room feel like they're closing in, 10 by 12 feet of space to contain a lifetime of love, service, and sacrifice. This is what devotion has earned me: exile in my own home, silence when I should have a voice, invisibility when I should be celebrated. I stand up and walk to my dresser mirror, studying the face that looks back at me in the dim light. 70 years old, with silver hair that still holds its wave, brown eyes that have seen too much disappointment, skin that bears the evidence of decades spent in Texas sun. I look like someone's grandmother, someone's mother, someone who should matter to somebody. But I don't matter. Not here. Not anymore. I open my dresser drawer and pull out the small cross that James removed from my wall, holding it in my palm like a talisman that has lost its power to protect or comfort. The metal is cool against my skin, and I remember the day Robert gave it to me for our 25th wedding anniversary. "So you'll always remember that you're loved," he'd said, clasping the chain around my neck with hands that trembled slightly from the early stages of the Parkinson's that would eventually take him from me. I'm loved, past tense, by someone who's been dead for 5 years. But in this house, in this moment, surrounded by people who should cherish me, I feel completely unloved and utterly disposable. The dinner party continues without me, their laughter and conversation a soundtrack to my irrelevance. I am the family secret, the inconvenient truth that had to be hidden so their evening could shine without blemish. I clutch the cross tighter, feeling its edges press into my palm, and for the first time in my life, I wonder if my faith has been nothing more than a beautiful delusion, a comfort blanket for people too weak to face reality without the promise of divine intervention. Lord, I whisper into the darkness, if you're really there, if you really care about the sparrows and the lilies of the field, please help me understand what I'm supposed to do with this pain, because I can't carry it much longer. The silence that follows feels like an answer in itself. At 9:47 p.m., something inside me snaps. I can hear them serving dessert, Paula's famous tiramisu that she learned to make from a YouTube video, but tells everyone is her grandmother's recipe. The lie sits in my chest like a stone, just another small deception in a house built on pretending I don't exist. I stand up slowly, my arthritic knees protesting after hours of sitting in the same position. My reflection in the dresser mirror shows a woman I barely recognize. Hunched shoulders, defeated eyes, the posture of someone who has accepted being erased from her own life. But tonight, something is different. Tonight, I refuse to be invisible. I smooth down my blue cardigan, pin back the few gray strands that have escaped my careful arrangement, and pick up my Bible. The leather feels warm in my hands, familiar as my own heartbeat. This book has been my anchor through every storm, my comfort through every loss, my hope when everything else failed. If they want me to hide it, they'll have to tell me why to my face. I open my bedroom door and step into the hallway. The hardwood floor creaks under my feet, the same creak that used to announce my approach when I lived openly in this house, when my presence was welcomed rather than tolerated. The dining room glows with warm light from the chandelier Robert and I bought for our 30th anniversary. 8 people are seated around the mahogany table, James at the head, Paula to his right, Isabel beside her, and 5 guests I recognize from previous mentions but have never been introduced to. James's boss, Mr. Richardson, is a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. His wife wears pearls and a kind smile that suggests she might actually be approachable. There's a younger couple, the Hendersons, not to be confused with my neighbor Mrs. Henderson, who work in marketing and seem impressed by the evening's sophistication. And there's Isabel, my 15-year-old granddaughter, wearing a dress I've never seen before, and speaking to the adults with poise I didn't know she possessed. She looks beautiful, confident, engaged, everything I remember from our tea parties and story times, but directed toward people who aren't me. I take a deep breath and step into the room. "Good evening," I say quietly, my voice carrying more clearly than I expected. The conversation stops mid-sentence. 8 pairs of eyes turn toward me, some curious, some surprised, some, like Paula's, filled with barely contained horror. "Mom," James says quickly, half rising from his chair. "I thought you were resting." "I was," I reply, moving toward the table with measured steps. "But I realized I haven't properly introduced myself to your guests." I look directly at Mr. Richardson. "I'm Mary Lou Thompson, James's mother. This is my home." The words hang in the air like a challenge. Paula's face has gone pale, and I can see her calculating how to manage this unexpected disruption to her carefully orchestrated evening. "How lovely to meet you, Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Richardson says, standing with the courtesy of a man raised to respect his elders. "James speaks of you often. I understand you're a retired teacher?" Before I can answer, Paula jumps in. "Actually, Mom Thompson worked in retail for many years. She's been adjusting to retirement." The correction stings, but I smile graciously. I did work in retail, but I've also been a Sunday school teacher for 37 years. I've taught hundreds of children about faith, hope, and love. I place my Bible gently on the sideboard. This book has been my guide through everything. I watch Paula's eyes narrow, but Mrs. Richardson looks genuinely interested. How wonderful! Faith can be such a comfort, especially during difficult times. "Yes," I agree, finding my voice growing stronger. "It sustained me through my husband's illness, through James's deployment overseas, through all the challenges that come with loving a family deeply." Isabel shifts uncomfortably in her chair, but I continue. "I've been blessed to serve this family in many ways over the years. Financially, emotionally, spiritually. It's been my joy to support James's dreams and help raise this beautiful granddaughter." The room falls silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. I can feel the tension radiating from Paula, the confusion from the guests, the resignation from James. "In fact," I continue, my voice gaining momentum, "I was just thinking about how much this family has meant to me, the sacrifices we make for love, the ways we support each other through thick and thin, the importance of honoring those who've given their lives in service to others." Mr. Richardson nods approvingly. "Family is everything, isn't it? The foundation of our society." "Indeed," I say, making eye contact with each person at the table. "I've given everything I had to this family. My savings, my home, my pension, my prayers, everything." Paula clears her throat sharply. "Mom Thompson, perhaps we should let our guests finish their dessert." "Of course," I interrupt gently. "I wouldn't want to interfere with such a lovely evening. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that the woman who's been supporting this household, who's been praying for this family's success, who's been quietly serving behind the scenes, that woman is proud of what we've accomplished together." I pick up my Bible and turn to leave, but Mrs. Richardson's voice stops me. "Mrs. Thompson, would you like to join us? There's always room for one more at the table." The invitation hangs in the air like a lifeline. I look at James, hoping to see some flicker of welcome in his eyes, some indication that he wants his mother to be part of this important evening. Instead, I see panic. "That's very kind," Paula says quickly, "but Mom Thompson was just saying goodnight. She gets tired easily these days." The lie hits me like a physical blow. I'm not tired. I'm energized by the first genuine conversation I've had in months. But I can see that my presence is unwelcome, that every moment I remain in this room is causing James stress and embarrassment. "Of course," I say softly. "I am rather tired. It was lovely meeting you all." I start to leave, but young Henderson, the marketing executive, speaks up. "Mrs. Thompson, before you go, I have to ask, how long have you lived in this beautiful home?" The question is innocent, but it lands like a bomb in the middle of Paula's carefully constructed narrative. I see her face flush, see James's hand tighten around his wine glass. 42 years, I answer truthfully. My husband and I bought this house when James was 3 years old. We paid it off with our own hands, worked extra jobs to afford the mortgage, made every repair and improvement ourselves. How wonderful, Mrs. Richardson says warmly. It must be so meaningful to have such deep roots in a place. It was, I say, and something in my tone makes several guests look up sharply. Of course, things change as we get older. Families evolve, priorities shift. Sometimes what seemed permanent turns out to be temporary. I can see Paula's knuckles going white as she grips her napkin. James looks like he wants to disappear entirely. Well, I continue, I should let you return to your evening. Enjoy the rest of your meal. I walk toward the door, but as I reach the threshold, I turn back one more time. James, honey, remember what I taught you when you were little? About treating others the way you'd want to be treated? About honoring your father and mother? About love being patient and kind? The room is dead silent. I can hear my own heartbeat, can feel the weight of every eye in the room. I remember, Mom, James says quietly, his voice barely audible. Good, I whisper. I hope you always remember. I leave the room and walk slowly back to my bedroom, but I don't close the door. I sit on my bed and listen as the conversation resumes, stilted and uncomfortable now. Your mother seems lovely, I hear Mrs. Richardson say. She is, James replies, but his voice sounds strained. She's been through a lot lately. Adjustment issues, you know. Adjustment issues. As if my pain is a psychological problem rather than a natural response to being systematically devalued and dismissed. The dinner party ends earlier than planned. I hear goodbyes being exchanged, car doors slamming, engines starting. Then silence. 20 minutes later, James knocks on my door. Mom, can we talk? I open the door to find him standing in the hallway, still in his dress shirt but with his tie loosened, looking older than his 45 years. What was that about? He asks, stepping into my room. What about? You know what I mean. The dinner. The comments about sacrifice and service and supporting the family. You embarrassed us. The words hit me like a slap. I embarrassed you? By existing? By speaking to your guests like a human being? You made it awkward. Paula worked so hard to make everything perfect. And you... I what, James? I reminded everyone that I live here too? That I'm part of this family? That I've given everything I had to support your dreams? He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I remember from his childhood when he was struggling to find the right words. It's not that simple, Mom. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work, the politics involved. Tonight was important, and I'm not? The question hangs between us like a chasm. I watch my son's face, searching for some sign of the boy who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms, who used to ask me to read him Bible stories before bed. Of course you're important, he says finally, but his voice lacks conviction. Am I, James? Because I don't feel important. I feel like a burden you're too polite to abandon completely. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my day, my health, my feelings? When was the last time you thanked me for anything I've done for this family? He's quiet for a long moment. I appreciate everything you've done, Mom, but things are different now. We're trying to build something here, and sometimes that means making difficult choices. Like hiding me from your professional associates? Like protecting everyone's interests. The euphemism hangs in the air between us. Protecting everyone's interests. Not including mine, apparently. I see, I say quietly. And what exactly are my interests in this arrangement? You have a roof over your head, food on the table, family around you. Do I, James? Do I really have family around me? Because I feel more alone than I've ever felt in my life. He looks uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he's trying to find an escape route. Maybe we should talk about this when you're feeling more stable. Stable. Another euphemism. Another way of dismissing my legitimate concerns as emotional instability. I'm perfectly stable, son. I'm just finally telling the truth. The truth about what? About how it feels to be invisible in your own home. About how it feels to have your faith mocked, your contributions ignored, your very existence treated as an inconvenience. James's expression hardens. Nobody's mocking your faith, Mom. We just don't share your enthusiasm for certain things. Certain things? You mean my belief in Jesus Christ? My commitment to Christian values? The faith that sustained me through your father's death and your military service? It's not that simple. It is that simple, James. Either you respect the woman who raised you, who sacrificed for you, who loves you unconditionally, or you don't. Either you honor the faith that shaped your childhood and guided your family, or you don't. We stare at each other across the small space of my bedroom, and I see something in his eyes that breaks my heart. Embarrassment. He's embarrassed by me, by my faith, by the inconvenient truth that his success has been built on my sacrifice. Would Jesus forgive this too? I whisper, more to myself than to him. Should I forgive again? Mom, No, I say firmly. I've forgiven enough. I've been patient enough. I've been invisible enough. I close the door quietly, leaving my son standing in the hallway, and for the first time in years, I don't pray for his happiness before I go to sleep. I wake up at 5:30 a.m. with a clarity I haven't felt in years. The house is silent around me, wrapped in that pre-dawn stillness when the world holds its breath before the day begins. Through my window, I can see the first pale fingers of sunlight reaching across Mrs. Henderson's rose garden, painting everything in shades of gold and possibility. For the first time in 3 years, I slept through the night without waking up in a panic about something I'd forgotten to do for this family, some service I'd failed to provide, some way I'd disappointed them. Instead, I dreamed of my mother's kitchen in East Texas, where the coffee was always strong and the love was never conditional. I sit up slowly, feeling something different in my bones. Not the usual ache of arthritis and emotional exhaustion, but a strange lightness, as if I've set down a burden I didn't realize I was carrying. Lord, I whisper into the quiet morning, I don't know what you have planned for me, but I'm ready to listen with new ears. I've been so focused on earning love that I forgot I was already loved by you. The words surprise me with their boldness. When did I stop believing that God's love was enough? When did I start thinking I had to justify my existence through endless service to people who had forgotten how to see me as anything more than a convenience? I reach for my Bible, letting it fall open naturally to Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. A new thing. The phrase resonates in my chest like a bell being rung for the first time in decades. Maybe it's time for something new in my life. Maybe it's time to stop accepting crumbs from people who should be offering me a seat at their table. I dress carefully in my best Sunday dress, the navy blue one with small white flowers that Robert always said made me look like springtime. I pin my hair back with the pearl barrettes my mother gave me for my 16th birthday, and I apply lipstick for the first time in months. When I look in the mirror, I see not a burden or an inconvenience, but a woman of God who has something valuable to offer the world. The kitchen is empty when I enter at 6:15, and I move through the space with the confidence of someone who belongs here. I make myself a proper breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. I set the table with the good china, the pieces that have been relegated to special occasions that never seem to come anymore. As I eat, I think about the conversation I had with God in the darkness of my room, not the desperate pleading that had characterized my prayers lately, but a real conversation, honest, direct, full of the kind of trust I used to feel before I started believing I had to earn divine favor through human sacrifice. I've been trying so hard to be what they wanted, I tell him over my coffee, that I forgot who you made me to be. I forgot that my worth doesn't depend on their approval. At 7:30, I hear footsteps in the hallway, James getting ready for work, his morning routine as predictable as sunrise. I continue eating my breakfast, unhurried and unashamed, when he appears in the kitchen doorway. Mom, you're up early. Good morning, son. I thought I'd start the day properly for once. He notices the good china, the carefully set table, the way I'm sitting straight in my chair instead of hunched over a piece of toast eaten standing up at the counter. Are you feeling okay? I'm feeling fine, James. Better than I have in a long time. He pours himself coffee and sits across from me, And for a moment, it feels like old times. Mother and son sharing breakfast, connected by more than obligation and convenience. About last night, he begins, but I hold up my hand. Last night was exactly what it needed to be. I finally told the truth, and sometimes the truth makes people uncomfortable. Mom, I know things have been difficult lately, but you have to understand. No, James, I don't have to understand anything except this. I am your mother. I raised you with love and sacrifice and faith. I deserve better than to be hidden away like a shameful secret. He looks down at his coffee cup, unable to meet my eyes. It's not that simple. It is that simple. Either you treat me with respect and dignity or you don't. Either you're proud to have me as your mother, or you're not. Either you value the woman who gave you life and devoted her life to your happiness, or you don't. The words hang in the air between us, clear and unmistakable. I watch my son process what I've said, see him struggling with truths he's been avoiding for years. I am proud of you, Mom. It's just complicated. Complicated how? Because your wife is embarrassed by my faith? Because your boss might think less of you if he knows your mother is a devout Christian? Because acknowledging my contributions might interfere with the image you're trying to project? You don't understand the pressures. I understand plenty, James. I understand that you've allowed other people's opinions to matter more than your own mother's dignity. I understand that you've chosen comfort over courage. I understand that you've forgotten the values I raised you with. He's quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee like it might contain answers to questions he's afraid to ask. What do you want from me, Mom? The question surprises me with its directness. What do I want? I've been so focused on what I've lost that I haven't considered what I might actually need to be happy. I want to matter, James. I want my presence in this house to be welcomed, not tolerated. I want my faith to be respected, not mocked. I want to be treated like a valued member of this family, not like a burden you're too polite to abandon. That's a lot to ask. Is it? Is it really so much to ask that your own mother be treated with basic human decency? Paula appears in the doorway, already dressed for her shift at the hospital, her face carefully neutral as she assesses the scene before her. Good morning, Mom Thompson. You're up early. Good morning, Paula. I thought I'd start the day with intention instead of apology. She pours herself coffee, her movements sharp with the kind of controlled irritation I've learned to recognize over the years. James, don't forget you have that conference call at 9, and the Hendersons are coming for dinner on Saturday. Actually, I say quietly, I think I'll be going out on Saturday. Both of them turn to look at me, surprise written across their faces. Going out where? Paula asks. I'm not sure yet. Maybe I'll visit my friend Dorothy. Maybe I'll go to the evening service at First Baptist. Maybe I'll just drive around Austin and remember what it feels like to make my own decisions. Paula exchanges a look with James, and I can see them calculating the implications of my sudden independence. Mom, you haven't driven in months. Are you sure that's safe? I haven't driven because I've had nowhere to go that anyone cared about. But I'm perfectly capable of operating a motor vehicle, James. I've been doing it for 54 years. But what about dinner? The Hendersons are expecting to have dinner with you and James. They're not expecting to see me since I'm usually hidden away during social occasions. I'm sure they'll have a lovely time without me. I stand up and carry my dishes to the sink, washing them with the same care I've always taken with household tasks. But this time it feels like I'm caring for myself rather than serving others. I'll be spending the day out as well, I continue, drying my hands on a dish towel that still bears the embroidered border I added years ago. I have some errands to run, some people to see, some decisions to make. What kind of decisions? Paula's voice carries an edge of anxiety, the kind that 70-year-old women are entitled to make about their own lives. I walk past them toward my bedroom, feeling their eyes on my back, sensing the tension that has suddenly filled the kitchen. In my room, I gather my purse, my Bible, and the small envelope where I keep important papers. The bank statements I've been ignoring for months, the insurance documents I haven't reviewed since Robert died, the financial records that represent decades of careful saving and responsible planning. It's time to understand exactly what resources I have at my disposal. It's time to remember that I am not helpless, not powerless, not completely dependent on the charity of people who have forgotten how to value me. At 9:30, I back my Honda out of the driveway for the first time in 4 months. The engine turns over smoothly, and the car responds to my touch like an old friend welcoming me back. I adjust the rearview mirror and catch sight of my own eyes. Clear, determined, alive with purpose I haven't felt in years. My first stop is First National Bank, where I've maintained accounts for 37 years. The teller recognizes me immediately. "Mrs. Thompson? We haven't seen you in so long. How are you doing?" "I'm doing very well. Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to speak with someone about my accounts. All of them." An hour later, I'm sitting in the office of Mr. Phillips, the bank manager, reviewing documents that tell the story of my financial life. The joint checking account that my pension payments have been funding. The savings account that was nearly depleted for James's business venture. The CD that matured last year and was rolled over without my input. "Mrs. Thompson," Mr. Phillips says gently, "I want to make sure you understand that as co-owner of these accounts, you have every right to make changes to how they're managed." "What kind of changes?" "Well, for instance, you could redirect your pension payments to a separate account that only you control. You could establish new savings goals. You could even set up a trust or make other arrangements for your assets." Assets. The word feels foreign in my mouth. I've been thinking of myself as a liability for so long that I'd forgotten I actually possess things of value. "How much are we talking about, Mr. Phillips?" He shows me the numbers, and I nearly fall out of my chair. Between my pension, my share of Robert's life insurance, the savings accounts, and the investments I'd forgotten about, I'm looking at nearly $500,000. $500,000. Money that I've been allowing to support a household that treats me like an unwelcome guest. I'd like to make some immediate changes, I hear myself saying. Starting with redirecting my pension payments to a new account that only I can access. By the time I leave the bank, I have a new checking account, a new savings account, and a folder full of paperwork that represents something I haven't had in years. Options. My next stop is Grace Haven Retirement Community, a place I've driven past hundreds of times but never considered for myself. The lobby is bright and welcoming, filled with comfortable furniture and the sound of people who seem genuinely happy to be there. "I'd like to know about your independent living options," I tell the admissions coordinator, a kind woman named Janet who immediately offers me coffee and treats me like a valued customer, rather than a burden to be managed. "We have several floor plans available," she says, spreading brochures across her desk. "All include full kitchens, private bathrooms, and access to our community dining room, chapel, library, and social activities." Chapel. The word stops me cold. "You have religious services?" "Oh, yes. Non-denominational services every Sunday morning, plus Bible study groups, prayer circles, and fellowship dinners. Faith is very important to many of our residents. For the first time in years, I feel tears of joy rather than sorrow. A place where my faith would be welcomed, where my prayers would be valued, where I could be myself without apology or explanation. By the time I return home at 4:30 p.m., I have a move-in date scheduled for the following week, and a plan that fills me with excitement rather than dread. James and Paula are waiting in the living room when I walk through the door, their faces serious with concern. "Mom, we need to talk," James says. "Of course, son. I have quite a bit to tell you both." I sit down across from them, my Bible in my lap, and for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm exactly where God wants me to be. "Mom, your pension didn't come through this month." James's words hang in the air like an accusation, his voice tight with the kind of controlled panic that comes when financial reality collides with comfortable assumptions. "That's correct," I reply calmly, settling into the armchair that used to be Robert's favorite spot. I've moved it back to its original position by the window, where the afternoon light streams in and I can see Mrs. Henderson tending her roses. Paula appears from the kitchen, her face flushed with the particular shade of anger that people display when their security is threatened without warning. "What do you mean that's correct? There must be some mistake. That money covers the mortgage payment." "There's no mistake. I redirected my pension to a new account that only I control." The silence that follows is deafening. I watch their faces cycle through disbelief, confusion, and dawning horror as they realize what this means for their carefully balanced household budget. You can't do that, Paula says, her voice rising to a pitch I've never heard before. We depend on that money. We've planned our entire financial structure around your contribution. My contribution. I let the words settle between us like stones dropped into still water. Is that what you call it? A contribution? Not a gift, not support, not the loving sacrifice of a mother who wanted to help her family succeed? James runs his hands through his hair, a gesture that takes me back to his childhood, but feels hollow now, stripped of the affection I used to feel when I recognized his familiar nervous habits. Mom, you don't understand the situation. We have obligations, commitments. The mortgage company won't care about whatever point you're trying to make. What point am I trying to make, James? Please, enlighten me. He exchanges a desperate look with Paula, and I can see them both struggling to find words that might manipulate me back into compliance without acknowledging the deeper issues we're really discussing. You're upset about last weekend, Paula says, her voice switching to the patronizing tone she uses when she thinks she's dealing with unreasonable behavior. I get it. You felt excluded from the dinner party. But taking away the pension payment is extreme. Extreme. I repeat the word like I'm tasting something bitter. What's extreme is hiding your mother from professional associates because you're ashamed of her faith. What's extreme is treating the woman who raised you like an inconvenient burden. What's extreme is using someone's financial support while systematically destroying their dignity. We never asked you to support us financially, James says, but his voice lacks conviction. Didn't you? When you convinced me to sign this house over to you for safety, didn't you mention how helpful it would be if I could contribute to the household expenses? When Paula was finishing nursing school, didn't you suggest that my help with her tuition would be an investment in our family's future? When your business was failing, didn't you say that my savings could help us all weather the storm together? Each question lands like a physical blow. I watch James's face crumble as he's forced to confront the systematic way they've extracted resources from me while gradually eroding my place in the family structure. That's different, Paula insists. That was family helping family. That was love. Was it? Because love doesn't come with conditions that require me to hide my faith. Love doesn't demand that I make myself invisible when important guests arrive. Love doesn't treat 15-year-old scripture teaching and church service as embarrassments to be concealed. Isabel appears in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. She looks between her parents and me with the wary expression of someone who senses that the ground beneath her feet is shifting in ways she doesn't understand. What's going on? She asks. Your grandmother has decided to stop helping with the household expenses, Paula explains, her voice dripping with the kind of victimized righteousness that people use when they want to be comforted for problems they've created themselves. I've decided to stop being taken advantage of, I correct gently. There's a difference. Isabel looks confused. Grandma? Are you moving out? The question cuts through all the financial discussions and gets to the heart of what's really happening here. I look at my granddaughter, this beautiful child who used to braid friendship bracelets with me, who used to ask me to read her Bible stories, who used to tell me I was her favorite person in the whole world. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Paula gasps audibly. You can't be serious. Where would you go? You're 70 years old. I'm going to Grace Haven Retirement Community. It's a beautiful place where people my age live independently while enjoying community activities and support services. They have a lovely chapel and an active faith community. A nursing home, James says, his voice hollow with what I hope is shame, but might just be financial panic. An independent living community, I correct. A place where I can be myself without apologizing for my beliefs or hiding my Bible when guests come over. The reference to that fateful dinner party hits its mark. Paula's face reddens, and James looks like he wants to disappear entirely. Mom, you can't just leave. This is your home. This is your family. Is it, James? Because I haven't felt at home here in years. And I haven't felt like family since the day I signed those papers that turned me from homeowner into charity case. That wasn't the intention. What was the intention? To make me feel grateful for being allowed to live in my own house? To make me dependent on your goodwill while you collected my pension and dismissed my contributions? I stand up slowly, My arthritis protesting the movement, but I feel stronger than I have in months. There's something powerful about finally speaking truth after years of swallowing hurt and disappointment. I've given this family everything I had, I continue, my voice growing steadier with each word. My savings, my home, my pension, my prayers, my service, my love. I've cooked your meals, cleaned your house, babysat your daughter, supported your dreams, and never asked for anything in return except basic respect and dignity. Mom, I'm not finished. The words come out sharper than I intended, but I don't apologize. Instead of respect, I got eye rolls when I said grace. Instead of dignity, I got hidden away when important guests arrived. Instead of gratitude, I got treated like my faith was an embarrassment and my presence was an inconvenience. Paula's face is flushed with anger now, and I can see her struggling to maintain the facade of reasonable concern. You're being manipulative, she says, her voice shaking. You're trying to punish us for not being perfect. Christian families work through their problems together. They don't abandon each other over minor disagreements. Minor disagreements? I feel something cold and hard settle in my chest. Is that what you call systematic disrespect? Is that what you call emotional abuse? Nobody abused you, James protests, but his voice lacks conviction. Didn't you? When you removed the cross from my bedroom wall, was that respect? When you told me to hide my Bible from your guests, was that honor? When you rolled your eyes at my prayers and mocked my faith, was that love? The room falls silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. Isabel is staring at her parents with an expression I've never seen before, disappointment mixed with dawning understanding. You made Grandma hide her Bible? She asks quietly. Paula starts to respond, but I hold up my hand. Let me finish what I came here to say. I reach into my purse and pull out a folder of legal documents. I've made some changes to my financial arrangements. My pension now goes directly to my new account. My savings have been moved to investments that I control completely. And I've updated my will. James's face goes white. Mom, please don't do anything drastic. Nothing drastic. Just honest. Half of my estate will go to missions work and Christian charities. The other half will go to organizations that serve elderly people who've been abandoned by their families. The words hit like a slap. Paula makes a small choking sound, and James looks like he's about to be sick. But, I continue, I'm not a cruel person. I'm not interested in revenge or punishment. I'm interested in respect and restoration. I open the folder and pull out a single sheet of paper. These are my conditions for reconciliation. If this family wants to rebuild our relationship, if you want to be included in my will, if you want me to reconsider my financial arrangements, here's what needs to happen. I read from the paper, my voice steady and clear. First, my faith will be respected in this house. No more eye-rolling at prayers. No more hiding Bibles from guests. No more treating Christian values as embarrassments. Second, I will be included in family decisions that affect my living situation. No more changes made without my input or consent. Third, family gatherings will include me as an honored member, not a burden to be managed or hidden. Fourth, there will be a formal apology in front of Isabel, acknowledging how I've been treated and committing to do better. I fold the paper and look each of them in the eye. Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. You have until Sunday to decide if this family values money more than relationships, image more than integrity, comfort more than character. The silence stretches out like a chasm between us. I can see them processing the implications, calculating the cost of pride versus the cost of financial loss. And if we don't agree to your conditions? Paula asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Then I move to Grace Haven on Monday morning, and you figure out how to manage your finances without my support. I'll pray for your happiness, but I won't enable your disrespect anymore. I stand up, smoothing down my skirt with hands that are no longer shaking. I forgive you, I say softly, looking directly at James. Both of you. But forgiveness doesn't mean accepting continued mistreatment. It means choosing to love you enough to require better from you. I walk toward my bedroom, then pause at the doorway. I'll be in my room, praying for wisdom and peace for all of us. When you're ready to treat me like the mother and grandmother who deserves your respect, You know where to find me. As I close my door behind me, I hear the eruption of desperate conversation in the living room, voices raised in panic, blame being assigned, solutions being frantically discussed. But for the first time in years, their chaos doesn't disturb my peace. I kneel beside my bed, open my Bible to Psalm 27, and read aloud. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? I am not afraid anymore. I am finally, completely free. 3 days of silence. 3 days of tiptoeing around the house like strangers sharing a hotel. 3 days of conversations that stop abruptly when I enter a room. 3 days of desperate whispered conferences behind closed doors. But I sleep peacefully through every one of them. On Thursday morning, I wake to the sound of birds singing outside my window and sunlight streaming across my face like a benediction. I dress in my favorite yellow dress, the one Robert bought me for Easter 15 years ago, the one that always made me feel like sunshine personified. When I enter the kitchen at 7 a.m., I find James sitting at the table with his laptop closed, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it's an anchor in a storm. "Good morning, son," I say pleasantly, moving through my morning routine with the unhurried confidence of someone who belongs in her own space. "Morning, Mom." His voice is hoarse, like he hasn't been sleeping well. I prepare my breakfast, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, fresh orange juice, while he watches me with the careful attention of someone studying a foreign species. "You seem different," he says finally. I feel different. I feel like myself again. I sit across from him at the table, bowing my head for a moment of silent grace. When I look up, James is staring at me with an expression I can't quite read. "Mom, about Sunday's deadline." "It's not a deadline, James. It's a choice point. A moment when this family decides what kind of people we want to be." He nods slowly, running his hands through his hair. "I've been thinking about what you said, about respect and dignity and everything. And I don't know how we got here. I don't know when I stopped seeing you as my mother and started seeing you as a problem to be managed." The words hit him visibly. His shoulders slump, and for the first time in years, I see not the stressed businessman trying to project success, but the little boy who used to crawl into my lap when thunderstorms scared him. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." The apology hangs in the air between us, tentative and fragile as a soap bubble. I want to rush forward, to comfort him, to make everything better the way I always have. But I've learned the difference between love and enabling, between forgiveness and accepting continued harm. Thank you for saying that, James. But I need you to understand. Sorry isn't enough anymore. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust or change patterns that have been years in the making. He nods, his eyes filling with tears I haven't seen since he was a child. "What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this." You can start by recognizing that it's not just about fixing something broken. It's about building something new, something better, something based on mutual respect, instead of one-sided sacrifice. Before he can respond, Paula appears in the doorway, still in her scrubs from the night shift at the hospital. She looks exhausted, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face pale with the kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from working all night and worrying all day. "Good morning, Paula," I say gently. She pours herself coffee with shaking hands, and I notice she's lost weight in the past week. The stress of financial uncertainty combined with the realization that their comfortable lifestyle was built on someone else's sacrifice has taken a visible toll. "Mom Thompson," she begins, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to say something." I wait patiently while she gathers her courage. "I was wrong. About the Bible. About your faith. About treating you like you were in the way instead of the foundation that's been holding this family together." The admission costs her something. I can see it in the way her hands tremble as she sits down across from me, in the way she can't quite meet my eyes. "I grew up in a house where religion was used as a weapon," she continues. "My father quoted scripture to justify his anger, used prayer to manipulate us into compliance. When I met James and saw how different your faith was, how gentle and loving and real, I thought I could appreciate it from a distance, but then I got scared. Scared of what, dear? Scared that if I let myself believe the way you believe, I'd become vulnerable again. Scared that if I admitted God might be real and good, I'd have to forgive my father. Scared that if I honored your faith, I'd have to examine my own heart. Tears are streaming down her face now, and I see not the daughter-in-law who's made my life difficult, but a wounded woman who's been carrying pain she didn't know how to heal. So I turned your faith into the enemy. I made it about being old-fashioned or embarrassing, when really it was about my own fear of surrendering control. I reach across the table and take her hand. Her skin is cold, but she doesn't pull away. Paula, honey, God's love isn't like human love. It doesn't come with conditions or requirements for perfection. It doesn't demand that you earn it or keep earning it. It just is. She breaks down completely then, sobbing with the kind of grief that comes from years of holding pain inside. James moves to put his arm around her, and for the first time in months, I see them not as adversaries but as my family, broken, struggling, but still capable of growth and redemption. I want to learn, Paula whispers through her tears. I want to understand what makes your faith so different from what I grew up with. I want to know how to pray without being afraid. Something warm and bright blooms in my chest. Not the desperate hope I've been carrying for years, but something deeper and more sustainable. This is what I've been praying for without even knowing it. Not their compliance, but their genuine transformation. We can learn together, I tell her. Faith isn't about having all the answers or being perfect. It's about being willing to trust that we're loved, even when we can't see how the story ends. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupts us. Isabel appears in her pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep, looking younger than her 15 years. Are you guys okay? I heard crying. She looks between her parents and me, her expression cautious but curious. This child has witnessed too much adult dysfunction over the past few years, has learned to navigate around emotional landmines that should never have been part of her daily experience. We're more than okay, sweetheart, I tell her. We're finally having the conversation we should have had a long time ago. Isabel pours herself a glass of orange juice and sits beside me, the way she used to when she was little and wanted to be close to her Gamma. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course, baby. Why didn't you ever get angry? Even when Mom and Dad were being mean to you? Why did you just take it? The question catches me off guard with its directness and wisdom. This child has been watching, processing, learning lessons I never intended to teach. I thought that's what love looked like. I answer honestly. I thought that if I just loved hard enough, served faithfully enough, sacrificed completely enough, eventually people would see my worth and treat me accordingly. But that's not how it worked. No, it's not. Because love without boundaries isn't actually love. It's enabling. And when we enable people to treat us poorly, we're not helping them become better versions of themselves. James clears his throat. Mom, what you said about conditions for reconciliation, I've been thinking about them all week. And I want to meet every single one. But I want to go further than that. I want to understand how we got to this point so it never happens again. He pulls out a piece of paper covered with his handwriting. I made a list. All the ways I've failed you as a son. All the times I chose other people's opinions over your dignity. All the ways I took your love for granted and treated your faith like an inconvenience. The paper is long, very long. I don't need you to punish yourself, James. It's not about punishment. It's about acknowledgement. About making sure I understand the full scope of what needs to change. Paula wipes her eyes and reaches for the paper. Can I add to it? Because I have my own list of failures to acknowledge. Watching them take responsibility, seeing them choose humility over pride, fills me with something I haven't felt in years. Hope. Not desperate, clinging hope, but the steady, confident hope that comes from watching God work in human hearts. There's something else, James says. The house. I want to sign it back over to you. It was always yours. And it should remain yours. We can pay rent if you'll let us stay, but you should never again feel like a guest in your own home. The offer takes my breath away. This is more than I asked for, more than I dared to hope for. And I want to learn to pray, Paula adds quickly. I want you to teach me the kind of prayers that sustained you through Dad's illness and James's deployment, and all the hard things you've faced. I want to learn too, Isabel says quietly. Will you teach me the Bible stories you used to tell me when I was little? I miss them. I look around the table at these three people, my son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, and see not the family that rejected me, but the family that God is recreating through love and grace and second chances. Yes, I whisper, my voice thick with tears. Yes to all of it. That evening, for the first time in 3 years, we gather in the living room for family devotions. I open my Bible, no longer hidden, no longer shameful, but honored as the treasure it's always been, and read from 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. I haven't been patient or kind, James says quietly. I've dishonored you and been self-seeking. We all have, Paula adds. But maybe that's what grace is for, giving us chances to start over and do better. We hold hands as I pray. And for the first time in years, my prayers are filled with gratitude instead of desperation, thanksgiving instead of pleading. Thank you, Lord, for loving us enough to let us face the truth about ourselves. Thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Thank you for showing us that real love requires both forgiveness and change. When I open my eyes, I see 3 faces that are peaceful instead of resistant, hopeful instead of defensive. The healing has begun. But more than that, the transformation Jesus promised to those who trust in his love is finally taking root in hearts that were hardened by fear and pride, and the belief that they had to earn what was already freely given. This is what resurrection looks like in daily life. Not the dramatic rising from the dead, but the quiet miracle of relationships restored, dignity reclaimed, and love redefined by truth instead of convenience. Amen. 6 months later, I'm standing in my kitchen. Yes, my kitchen, with my name back on the deed and my cross hanging proudly on the wall, preparing Sunday dinner for a house full of laughter. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Real change never does. But like watching a garden bloom after a long winter, the signs of new life appeared gradually, beautifully, miraculously. James kept his word about everything. The house was legally transferred back to my name within 2 weeks, accompanied by a handwritten letter that I keep in my Bible. Mom, this was always yours. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that homes are built with love, not ownership papers. Paula started attending Wednesday evening Bible study with me at First Baptist. The first few times, she sat rigid in her chair, ready to flee if anyone quoted scripture with the harsh judgment she'd grown up with. Instead, she found Pastor Williams, a gentle man in his 70s who talks about God's love like he's describing his best friend, and a group of women who welcomed her with the warmth she'd been searching for her whole life. I never knew church could feel like family, she told me after her 3rd meeting, tears streaming down her face. I never knew Christians could be so safe. Now she co-leads a support group for women who've experienced spiritual abuse, helping others distinguish between authentic faith and religious manipulation. Her nursing background, combined with her personal journey toward healing, has made her a powerful advocate for people whose understanding of God has been damaged by human cruelty. Isabel, my precious granddaughter, has become my eager student again. Every Saturday morning she comes to my room, now redecorated with all my favorite things, including family photos and the cross that had been banished to my dresser drawer, and we study scripture together. She's working through the Book of Psalms, copying her favorite verses into a journal decorated with stickers and colored pens. "Grandma," she said last week, "I think I understand now why your faith never broke. Even when we were being terrible to you, it wasn't built on us. It was built on Jesus." The wisdom of children, spoken by a 15-year-old who's learning to see God as protector rather than punisher, love rather than law. James has surprised me most of all. My son, who once rolled his eyes at prayer and removed crosses from walls, now leads our family devotions every Sunday evening. He's joined the men's ministry at church and volunteers at a local homeless shelter, saying he wants to understand what it feels like to serve others the way I served our family for so many years. I'm learning that being a man of God doesn't mean being successful in the world's eyes, he told me recently. It means being faithful to the people God has entrusted to your care. I failed at that with you, Mom. I won't fail again. The dinner party crowd that once excluded me now includes me as an honored guest. Mr. Richardson, James's boss, has become a family friend who often asks about my prayer requests and shares stories about his own mother's faith. Mrs. Richardson and I have started a prayer circle for military families, remembering the days when I knelt beside my bed, pleading for James's safe return from Afghanistan. But perhaps the most beautiful change is the simplest one. I matter again. My opinions are sought. My presence is welcomed. My faith is honored. When guests come to dinner, Paula introduces me as Mom Thompson, the woman who taught this family everything we know about real love. My Bible sits on the coffee table in the living room, no longer hidden but displayed as the treasure it's always been. Sometimes I find James reading it in the early morning. Sometimes Paula studies it while preparing for her support group meetings. Sometimes Isabel carries it to her room when she's working on her scripture journal. The financial arrangement has changed too, but not in the way any of us expected. I still contribute to household expenses, but now it's a choice rather than an expectation. A gift rather than an obligation. James and Paula have restructured their budget, downsized some expenses, and found ways to live within their means without depending on my pension. We want your money to be yours, Mom, Paula explained when we had our first honest conversation about finances. We want you to spend it on things that bring you joy, not things we think we need. So I've started taking the trips I always dreamed about. Last month, I visited my childhood friend Dorothy in San Antonio, something I hadn't done in 15 years because I'd felt too needed at home to leave. Next month, Isabel and I are going to Washington, D.C. to see the Smithsonian, a grandmother-granddaughter adventure she's been planning for weeks. I've also started giving more generously to missions and charitable organizations, finding joy in supporting causes that reflect my values. Every month, I send money to Grace Haven Retirement Community, not because I need their services anymore, but because I want to help other elderly people who don't have families capable of providing the love and respect they deserve. The changes in our relationships have rippled outward into our community involvement. We attend church together every Sunday, sitting in the third pew on the right side where Robert and I used to sit. James sings hymns in his deep baritone voice. Paula takes notes during sermons, and Isabel helps with the children's ministry. People at church have commented on the transformation. The Thompson family glows with something different, Pastor Williams told me. Whatever healing God has done in your home, it's beautiful to witness. The healing extends to practical matters, too. James has received 2 promotions at work, something he attributes to the peace and confidence that comes from having integrity in his personal relationships. Paula was selected to head the new trauma-informed care program at the hospital, a position that allows her to use her skills while advocating for patients who've experienced various forms of abuse. But the most profound change is in my own heart. I no longer wake up wondering if I matter, no longer spend my days trying to earn love that was already mine by right of relationship. I move through my house, our house, with the confidence of someone who belongs, someone who is valued, someone whose presence makes life better for the people around her. I still cook Sunday dinner, but now it's celebration rather than obligation. I still help with household tasks, but now it's contribution rather than servitude. I still pray for my family daily, but now my prayers are filled with thanksgiving rather than desperation. This morning, as I set the table for Sunday dinner, I paused to admire the centerpiece Isabel made. A small wooden cross surrounded by wildflowers from our garden, with a card that reads, "Thank you, Grandma, for showing us what Jesus looks like in real life. What Jesus looks like in real life." The phrase stops me in my tracks, overwhelming me with the magnitude of what God has accomplished in our family, not through dramatic miracles or supernatural interventions, but through the quiet power of love that refuses to enable, forgiveness that requires change, and grace that transforms hearts willing to be transformed. The doorbell rings, And I hear James welcoming Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor who's become like a sister to me. She's joining us for dinner, along with Dorothy, who's visiting from San Antonio, and the Peterson family from church, whose teenage son considers me his honorary grandmother. As I listen to the voices filling my living room, laughter, conversation, the easy comfort of people who genuinely enjoy each other's company, I'm reminded of Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely in families. He has indeed set this lonely woman in a family. Not the family I was trying to create through endless sacrifice and one-sided love, but the family he was creating through mutual respect and authentic relationship. I walk into the living room where James is telling a story about his week at work. Paula is helping Isabel arrange flowers, and our guests are settling into chairs with the relaxed comfort of people who know they're welcome. "Dinner's ready," I announce, and everyone moves toward the dining room with enthusiasm rather than obligation. As we gather around the table, James asks me to say, "Grace." I look around at these faces, some related by blood, some related by choice, all connected by love, and feel my heart overflow with gratitude. "Heavenly Father," I begin, "we thank you for this food, for this family, for this home where your love dwells. Thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Thank you for showing us that real love requires both grace and truth, both forgiveness and change. Thank you for proving that no heart is too hard for you to soften, no relationship too broken for you to heal." I pause, looking at each person around the table. Thank you for teaching us that we don't have to hide who we are to be loved, that our faith is something to be celebrated rather than concealed, and that families grow stronger when they're built on your foundation rather than human expectations. "Amen," comes the chorus of voices. And I hear in that single word the unity I've been praying for, the harmony that comes when people choose love over pride, truth over comfort, relationship over image. As we pass dishes and share stories, as laughter fills the spaces that were once heavy with tension, I marvel at how completely God has restored what seemed permanently broken. This is resurrection power at work in ordinary life, the ability to bring life from death, hope from despair, family from fragments. Later tonight, after the dishes are done and the guests have gone home, I'll sit in my favorite chair by the window and read my Bible by the lamp Robert bought me for our 25th anniversary. I'll pray for continued healing, for wisdom to love well, for the strength to maintain the boundaries that have set us all free. But right now, in this moment, surrounded by the family God has redeemed and the friends He has provided, I am simply grateful. Have you ever experienced something like this in your own life? Have you watched God restore relationships you thought were beyond repair? Or seen Him give you the courage to require better treatment from people you love? How has your faith helped you find the balance between forgiveness and healthy boundaries? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps others who are walking similar paths. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can continue sharing messages of hope and healing. You never know who might need to hear about God's power to transform families and restore dignity to those who've been forgotten or dismissed. May God bless everyone who's been through something like this, everyone who's had to choose between enabling and loving, everyone who's discovered that real love sometimes requires saying no to what's comfortable and yes to what's right. In Jesus' name, amen.